Hey, it's Kyle Meredith, and welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville and Consequence of Sound. My guest today is Mark Shue of the band Guided by Voices. They've got their new record out called Space Gun. I got to talk to him about what it's like being in a band that records and releases so much music at such a rapid-fire pace, as well as songs from the record like Flight Advantage and Blink Blank, as well as some of Mark's own songs that are presented as B-sides, and what to expect from the upcoming tour. It's Mark Shue of Guided by Voices.
Hey, Kyle, how are you?
I'm well. So the new record, Space Gun, it's out now. This has instantly been one of my favorite Guided by Voices records in a while, and I stay a pretty consistent fan, but this seems like there's something a little bit extra special with this one. But, before we get too far into the record, though, as being still one of the newer guys in the band, there's some questions I got to know. With the volumes of songs that Guided by Voices it gets released, you've only been in the band now for about 2 years, and there's already been multiple records. How long do you actually get to sit with a song or an album? Does it feel like it's kind of come and go really quick?
Yeah, it's an interesting rhythm that we've gotten in, where once it's in the can, we don't really revisit it until 6 months to a year later, when the album is released and we're ready to tour it. So we always kind of stay a few steps ahead. So, as Space Gun was being released, we were working on something that will come out in the future. So we're sort of always staying one step ahead of whatever album is coming out. At least that's sort of the natural rhythm that we've been working at. So yeah, it's always a lot of fun to sort of revisit where you were when the songs were coming together in the recording process, in order to get them together to take them out live.
How many songs are you guys learning for this tour?
I don't know the exact number. We, as you probably know, the sets are usually around like 2 hours, 45 minutes, close to 3. And probably about, I would say it's probably about 55 to 60 songs.
Wow.
And this particular tour will be playing Space Gun in its entirety. So there's a bunch of new surprises as well. So there's like a lot of new additions every time.
And for a band like that, obviously there is more back catalog than anybody could ever get to. So how important is it to pay attention to the history? I mean, are there some obvious songs, hits, if you will, in the past that like they're going to make it automatically?
Sure. Yeah. There's always a few that we tend to, that we never want to take out of the set because they're just classics. And then we sort of try to rotate other classics and older songs. Bob is really good about putting together a set list that's a mix of, old and new. Yeah, so we try to keep that fresh every time, and like every time we go out on a tour behind an album, we really change the set from the ground up. But there'll always be some old favorites in there, so.
You've been in the band for 2 years now, as I read 2016 anyway, unless I'm off a little bit by that. How did you come into the fold on this one? Were you a big Guided by Voices fan beforehand?
Yeah. I was a big Guided by Voices fan, big Bob fan. I always loved and admired the band and Bob's songs and songwriting. And it's funny, it kind of happened really naturally how this band came together. We had been talking about doing a project together, which ended up being ESP Ohio. And Doug and I had played together in Doug Gillard's solo band in New York. ESP Ohio came together and was Bob and Doug and myself and Travis Harrison, who's our recording engineer and also goes on the road with us now. Sort of right around the time that we were doing that, Bob was thinking about touring again, and he had just finished this album called Please Be Honest, where he played all the instruments. And that was sort of like, I think for him, that was a real reset button on, sort of reestablishing Guided by Voices and what it can be. So, he put together a band to tour that album, and that was initially how it got started. So it felt like ESP Ohio was kind of happening parallel, like at the same time. It almost could have been a Guided by Voices album, maybe.
Yeah. And I know, the few albums before, going into this one, they'd gotten back to a pretty lo-fi sound. That's not the case though with this new record. I mean, this sounds really big. And I don't know, was that the intent? I've sort of got the feeling sometimes that Bob wanted to make these stadium anthems, if you will.
Yeah, I think with August by Cake, which was a double album, and we had so many different layers and textures and approaches going on in the production, where some of the songs were a little more fleshed out, a little bit more hi-fi, and some of them were pretty lo-fi and done pretty quickly. So I think with How Do You Spell Heaven, we sort of started to get into a place where we were experimenting with a little more polished, more focused sounds. And this record, it just felt like, with the nature of the songs and the nature of the lyrics and the subject matter, like it could be, I remember getting Bob's demos for this record, which are just him and an acoustic guitar playing through a boombox. And it just sounded epic. Like, it sounded like it wanted to be big, so yeah, I think, this record in a way was like a culmination of sort of everything that this lineup had been doing so far, and just, I think, more fully realized.
Now, is Bob there when you guys actually do the recording? I've sort of read where it sounds like, he passes you the demo, and what happens then? Do you guys put it together and then he puts but is he actually there with you when you guys are putting it together?
Well, it depends. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Lately, we've gotten in a rhythm where, because 3/5 of the band are actually based in the New York area, so it makes things efficient as far as working on albums. So we'll work on most of the music here, record it, flesh it out, and then Travis, the engineer, and I will go out to Dayton and record the vocals out there, and then mix it, and then it's done. And that's kind of what we've been doing. That's what we did for Space Gun. That's kind of what we've been doing lately, and it's a good, fast way to work. If we can keep up with the pace, hopefully.
But I guess there's occasionally those ones I feel like someone was talking about Flight Advantage being really fun recording as a band, and I think the emphasis was on as a band. So
yeah,
I guess those moments happen.
Yeah, I think those are usually Flight Advantage is an example of we started doing some stuff just recording live in a room to tape. Bob wasn't there, but that was actually me and Doug and Kevin and Bobby in a room, just one take, and then Bob put vocals on it a couple weeks later. That's kind of been the rhythm, and it's nice having everybody in a same zone where we can kick it out.
I know fans have pointed out that another track with Blink Blink is sounding really something different for Bob. I didn't know if there was any story there that you knew about, where that song comes from.
I'm not sure where the song comes from as far as his intent in the writing of it. I know that he mentioned with that song and kind of the album in general, it does have a sort of spacey theme throughout, and it's got a lot of kind of characters that are introduced and different concepts that come in and out of the album. And so it felt like a record that there was room, and Bob really encouraged that. There was room to explore new sounds and kind of get out there a little bit with it. So.
And there's a history that the band members get the B-sides sometimes. Do you have one? Do you get a B-side?
Yeah, I have one off the Space Gun singles. I think it's the single for See My Field. Mm-hmm. I have a song called Disconnected Eyes. And on that same B-side is a song of Kevin's called Leave Tomorrow. And actually, all four of us ended up doing B-sides for the singles off of Space Gun. And then actually on How Do You Spell Heaven, there's a B-side that Doug and I wrote together on tour called Nice City, which we actually we recorded on a day off on tour in about 12 hours. We recorded, and mixed and sent it off to the pressing plant. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, the speed of this band for all of you, it's amazing. It's insane. It's amazing. Being a fan of the band is unlike being a fan of any other band that I can think of. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's infectious. The pace and the fervor that Bob writes with, it's definitely infectious, and it definitely inspires the rest of us all the time. And it's sort of, I don't know, you find yourself just sort of caught up in this beautiful whirlwind of creativity. before you know it, there's 4 albums done.
I don't know if you know, if you can speak about it. I know there's going to be a Bob Pollard bio coming out in August or anything. Do you know if there's going to be any special events, shows that go along with that, coincide with it?
I'm not sure. I can't speak to if there's going to be any special events, but yeah, I know it'll be out in August, and it's a friend of the band who's a big fan, Matthew Cutter. He wrote it along with Bob and the band's cooperation, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to dig in.
I look forward to that. Thank you, Mark, for taking the time today. I really appreciate this. And again, this Space Gun record is so much fun. Look forward to hearing it, as you said, in full out on the tour.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you're digging it, and thanks for speaking with me. And look forward to seeing you in Louisville.
Yeah, man. You take care, and we'll see you around.
Awesome, man. Thanks, Kyle.
All right, bye.
All right, take care.
Hey, thanks to Mark Shue of Guided by Voices. The new release is Space Gun. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to Consequence of Sound's YouTube channel to keep up with your favorite artists and interviews at WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.